saying my name.
You will be remembered no
and
differently than the officers of the Third Reich.
So Abby Martin here, just absolutely going in versus this Israeli propagandist extraordinaire, Jonathan Conricus. I don't know why Piers Morgan continues to have him on. He has him on basically bi-weekly at this point as a regular guest, and he does the same just disturbing levels of exaggerated propaganda that we have to sit through, and you have to have people on the other side constantly fact-checking and trying to break through his filibusters, his nonstop filibusters. The guy can talk forever and ever. Abby Martin, good person to counteract his nonsense. We're going to go ahead and jump in, watch this panel. I might have some thoughts throughout, and here we go.
They issued a declaration that on August 22nd, there's famine in certain parts of Gaza. By their own numbers of level 4 and 5, emergency and famine, there should have been 9,500 dead Palestinians by malnutrition, not natural deaths, not combat, not pre-existing conditions. 9,500 dead Palestinians since August 22nd. You know how many there really have been? According to Hamas numbers, 191. That's 98% off. Now, I challenge you and I challenge everybody who have been screaming and were part of the starvation campaign and the famine, all of the other nonsense that we heard with UN regalia attached to it. At the end of the day, it's a fake. It's lies. It is not supported by reality. It's make-believe, and it is propaganda against Israel that useful idiots who have no bearing on the situation on the ground are parroting just because it is a weapon
but you
against
wouldn't dispute,
Israel.
Jonathan.
It is untrue.
But Jonathan,
it is not factual.
Okay,
we
but hang on,
can
hang
see
on,
the photos, right?
Hang on, but Jonathan, you wouldn't dispute that there was a near 3-month blockade of substantial amounts of food and aid. I mean, that was indisputable. That happened.
There were indeed months where not a lot was coming in, yes.
Right. But
that's true. But the important part, Piers, but the important part is what was the result? The important part is, okay, that was done by Israel and it was said by Israeli leadership. It was challenged by the defense establishment, and there were a lot of internal discussions. But at the end of the day, when UN-affiliated organizations declared famine, and every journalist, editor, media personality, and talking heads repeated that as if that was gospel, nobody looks at the numbers. And even today, a month and a half after that, is anybody held accountable for these libellous, false, grotesque claims?
Well, why
Isn't
don't we,
it supposed to mean something
why
when
don't we
you
agree?
say
Why don't we agree?
Okay.
Okay. So why don't we?
Abby,
I will come to you. So why don't we agree? Rather like with genocide, right? I have believed that the rhetoric coming out of Smodrich and Ben-Gvir in particular has made it clear there's been a policy by large sections of this government of ethnic cleansing. They would like to see all the Palestinians gone from Gaza and preferably the West Bank too. Thankfully, in this new plan, that is no longer apparently something that will be sustained by the American government, which means it probably won't happen. But let's not pretend they weren't talking about that openly. And in relation to famine, OK, let's just say there was a deliberate policy for nearly 12 weeks of starving Palestinians, and that some of them starved to death. I mean,
there wasn't a policy of starving Palestinians. There was a policy of not providing the enemy.
In other words, I think
Piers,
these words,
Piers,
in a way...
We've spoken about this.
But hang on,
Piers,
let me finish.
We have spoken about this.
We have.
But you've addressed this, really, and we've spoken about it in the past. There was indeed an Israeli policy. And by the way, I reject and I criticize and I do not accept the statements made by Smodrich and Ben-Gvir. I think that they are disgusting. I think that they are not representative of Israel. I think that they are fringe. I know we've had this discussion before. He's a minister in cabinet, etc. But I think that they do not represent the majority of Israel. And most importantly, they are not implemented on the ground by the IDF. And amongst the three of us, actually the one who knows what the IDF is doing and what the IDF isn't doing and what goes on in internal deliberations in Israel, I actually have access to that, and I can say, and that's one of the reasons why I am here and I speak about it publicly, is yes, there have been horrible, unethical calls by Israeli ministers that should be condemned. I condemn it. Most Israelis do, and they do not reflect what Israelis believe should be done. Is there a will for revenge against Palestinians for what they have been doing and what they did on October 7? Definitely yes. But that is not what the IDF has been doing. The IDF has been fighting Hamas, and they have been applying military force proportionately, according to military necessity, against military targets.
All right,
that is what the IDF has been doing.
Okay.
And if we're honest, last sentence, yes, I know I'm speaking longly, last sentence, Israel is the only country that has been forced to provide food and fuel to its enemy. If you can give me any other example in modern history of a combating side that is forced to feed.
It's the law. When you're illegally besieging
no, it's not the law. It's not the law that you feed your enemy.
Right. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. No, it is not the law. It is not the law.
It
is not the law.
Hang on. I'll let Jonathan, you have a good long stretch
Jonathan, you've
there.
been talking
Let
endlessly.
Abby now respond without interrupting her. Abby.
I haven't interrupted at all, just to be clear.
Okay. Of course, because you've just been droning on and on with the most outrageous propaganda possible, basically saying, oh, they say that this many kids died of starvation, but really, that's a lie. We've seen the photos, Jonathan. It's skin and bones. It's like concentration camp victims coming out of the Holocaust. Do you know that we see this? I know that Israel's like to control the narrative with the billions of dollars with Hasbro propaganda, but we see the photos of starving children. We see doctors' testimonies saying baby formula was seized out of their bags. Baby formula. Why are you punishing babies? We know what the situation on the ground. Peanut butter was told to doctors that it was a luxury and stolen out of their bags, Jonathan. For the last 2 years, we've been told, not even talking about the siege before where calories were counted, given to Palestinians before October 7th, but just since October 7th, we've been told that there's no siege, there's no famine, that aid is not being prevented from being delivered, right? Well, we just saw an entire naval fleet committed an act of piracy and kidnapping of 500 activists illegally in international waters that were trying to bring baby formula and food to starving Palestinians. We've seen a mercenary force unload a barrage of bullets and kill more Palestinians begging for bread than civilians died on October 7th. So while people like you, these hand-picked spokespeople with American or Swedish accents, come and speak to Western audiences and placate us and tell us lies, we know what Israeli society thinks and believes, Jonathan. We see the news. I see Israeli Channel 12. I see the IDF reports. Of course I do. I see them coming out saying, guess what? Everyone left in Gaza City, the 250,000 people left, are going to be treated as terrorists and killed. Jonathan, I just let you speak forever. Jonathan,
I mean, you keep
Jonathan, let me
finish.
Jonathan, let me finish. Jonathan, let me finish.
So either stop saying my name.
You will be remembered no differently than the officers of the Third Reich. You will be remembered no differently than the officers of the Third Reich. You will be remembered in the dustbin of history.
I know you rehearsed that line.
Oh, come
I'm sure you
on,
rehearsed
man.
that line, but it's really pitiful. Come on, you can do better. You're a smart woman. You can do better. You've written books. You've narrated movies. You could do better. And I'm a bit insulted that is what you've come up with against me. Really?
It's the truth.
Well, what's your response to the rest of what I said, Jonathan? So you don't want to be compared to a Nazi officer.
I would gladly tell
Why
you.
would you compare
in the beginning?
Abby, let me just jump in there.
I mean, you're so out of bounds.
Hang on, Jonathan. Abby, out of interest, why would you think that anybody watching this, when they hear you tell a Jewish man that he's basically a Nazi,
the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor, by the way, whose grandfather's family was murdered.
That is a winning point to make. Why?
Because, Piers, number one, it is a winning argument to make because it's correct. And when you have, look, the great irony of this whole situation and the great horror and the great sadness of this all is exactly that, Piers. It's that you have a population of people that were refugees, that they sought the land that they are seeking and they're now terrorizing in order to escape atrocities like the Holocaust that was done to them by the Nazis. And for whatever reason, or however it's possible, that if it's generational trauma or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, that they are now doing the exact same thing. They have turned around and they have now become the very thing that persecuted them and that genocided them. They are now turning around and doing the same exact thing to another population of people. It is just the reality of the situation. Abby Martin is not out of bounds in saying what she's saying. And Piers, just because it is so difficult to believe and it is so ironic, I understand it's so ironic, but sometimes these great ironies manifest, and that's exactly what we are witnessing. We can't just deny that it is what it is.
Would you not think in that moment, a lot of viewers go, what the hell are you talking about? Why would you be so offensive?
Well, it's not offensive at all. It's not offensive at all. If you want to not be compared to Nazis, stop acting like Nazis. It's very simple. It's very simple. Stop doing what Nazis did and stop treating Palestinians like Jews in concentration camps, Jonathan.
You are in your little eco bubble. You're so. I think you're consumed.
No, you
by
are,
hatred
my friend.
the
world has woken up, my friend. The world has woken up. No one believes your lies anymore.
No, it hasn't.
You're pathetic.
And I don't think that
we're pathetic
friends.
propagandist.
I don't think that we're friends.
You're an absolutely pathetic propagandist, and no one
when
believes
you. In the beginning,
no one
when
believes
Piers
you.
gave you a long lifeline.
Israel's on a shelf life, my friend. Zionism has a shelf life.
He asked you, why does Hamas have your legitimacy in your eyes? Why should Hamas even hold weapons? And you fumbled and stumbled, and you couldn't bring yourself to say, well, actually, no, Hamas shouldn't have weapons because they're bloody heinous terrorists. That's the response that I would,
I think
it makes
Israel
sense for a person like you to say.
Jonathan.
But you couldn't bring yourself to say it. Why? Because you sympathize with them.
Of course, I'm not going to say it.
Because you believe that their resistance is legitimate. You believe, I'm sure, that Israel is very annoying and that we shouldn't exist where we are.
I believe in the law, Jonathan. I believe in the law.
Yeah, no, you don't believe in the law. You don't believe in the law. You believe that we don't have a right to exist in our homeland.
I want Israel to.
I've read some parts of your books. I've seen what you've done in Gaza. You've been propagating for Hamas.
Israel should follow the law, Piers. Very simple.
The
solution is Israel to follow the law.
I think
you couldn't even bring yourself to say
should follow the law.
Hamas shouldn't have weapons.
Everyone should follow the law. I've got to leave
Everyone
it
should follow the law.
We've run out of time, but I thank you both very
Look, Hamas should be demilitarized.
much.
Israel should be demilitarized. But yeah, look, and that's kind of how you have to treat this Jonathan guy. He is such a vicious and ruthless propagandist that you have to go straight to him. You can't let him filibuster. She let him filibuster there for a little while there. You gotta know when to jump in and cut him off. And maybe if Piers would be better at his job, he would be able to moderate that better, or just stop having this guy on, because he really has this Jonathan guy on like once a month. And it seems, I don't know if he's getting paid to have him on, or if Jonathan is just so persistent and pushing to be on. I guess he's doing an October 7th special, so he wanted to do it anyway, but I don't know. I just don't like it. He's such a vicious propagandist.